This one can be played either solo or cooperatively, but this is a game where players are going to have a starting card that represents their ship, and then you're going to have a deck of double-sided cards with one side featuring some sort of marvel that you're going to be trying to place throughout the game, and then the other side is going to be featuring different waypoints that you're going to be connecting together into a single contiguous path, trying to match up certain icons close to each other to allow you to place certain marvels depending on the sets that they need, but then also trying to have a certain amount of those icons revealed at the end of the game to score you more victory points. But I think I can give you a really good idea of how this game plays because Buttonshy was kind enough to send me a copy, and I can quickly go over how you set up a game depending on difficulty, how a round plays, and the general strategy and goals that you're trying to achieve. As I mentioned, this game does use double-sided cards, and you can see all these different map cards, but on the other side is a whole bunch of different marvels, and you're only going to be using 5 marvels in a single game, which means that there is a whole lot of variety every time that you put this one out on the table. Each of these different marvels are also ranked with a Roman numeral as well as a color, and that determines the difficulty of that marvel, and the rules provide a table of how many of each of these you'll be including depending on how difficult you want the game to be. I've done a lot of these playthroughs for Buttonshy now, and when I play these games off camera, I get absolutely destroyed by them, but for whatever reason, when I play them on camera, I tend to do pretty well, so I'm going to be playing on the veteran difficulty here, hopefully showing you how challenging these games can be, and maybe even getting humbled just a little bit. So for the veteran difficulty, I needed 1 level 1 card, 2 level 2, and 2 level 3, and I did just randomly select these from the deck of cards. If you want, you can go ahead and just select the exact cards that you want to play with, especially once you do get more familiar with this game. As I mentioned, if you're playing with this side of your boat up, you're going to be getting 3 additional restrictions, which do make the game more difficult. And you might have noticed that they correlate to the 3 different difficulties of the marvels. And the reason for that is because whichever marvel is currently active, that difficulty level is going to be dictating which effect is active on this card. And I will just show you the other side of the card here, but it just has a little bit of flavor text. It doesn't have any effect in the game. The game ends once all the cards have been put into play, but like I said, this is our starting card, so we'll just throw this down here. And then all the marvels are just going to get randomly shuffled together, so we'll go ahead and do that. And then whichever one I draw on the top is going to be the active marvel at the start of the game. So I'm not going to look. We'll cut the deck, and this is going to be our active marvel. You just place it next to the ship. The rest can just go up here for now. Because the level 2 difficulty marvel is currently active, it means this second restriction is going to be put into play. Because the level 2 marvel was put into play, it's now the active marvel, which means that the second restriction on this card is going to be activated, which is going to add a little bit of difficulty when we add these map cards. On a turn, you're always going to be choosing whether you want to explore or if you want to discover. If you're going to explore, you're always going to be drawing 2 cards from the path deck and putting them into play. And anytime that you draw one of these cards, you can choose whether you want to draw from the top or if you want to draw blindly from the bottom. Each of these cards will always have 2 waypoints on them indicated by these stars, and then a number of path segments connecting them together. They can also have a variety of different icons on them that are each worth 2 victory points at the end of the game if those icons are visible up to a certain limit, and I'll come back to that in a second here, with the exception of the whirlpool here, which is actually -3 victory points at the end of the game, so you do want to cover up as many of those as possible. The caveat with all of this is that at the end of the game, you're also going to be making sure that you don't have more than 4 shark fins, more than 3 tentacles, or more than 2 tridents, because if you breach any of those limits, don't even bother adding up the victory points because you have immediately lost the game. The other thing these icons are used for is to meet the requirements in order to perform a discover action. Anytime you perform a discover action, that's going to allow you to put either the active marvel or the marvel at the top of the marvel deck into play, but in order to do that, you do need to meet the requirements of that card. If we take a look at this card here, you'll notice in the bottom right corner, it has a 3, and then it has specifically a shark fin and a tentacle. This means that we have to at least cover a shark fin and a tentacle, and then also cover 3 of any other icons. That means that to place this specific card, we need to get those icons grouped together in such a way that we're able to cover them with the card. If you're able to place all of these cards before the end of the game, then that's going to be earning you 5 victory points. But if you're not able to, you're not going to get those victory points, and then you're also going to be losing 5 for each card that you weren't able to play. There's a couple more rules with this, but I think we can just jump into it and I can show you exactly how a turn plays. And the only thing we can really do at the beginning of the game is perform an explore action. And I'm just going to go ahead and draw the top card here. And the first card is a little bit special because it can only be placed at the top of your ship card. And one of the waypoints does have to cover the waypoint on that card. So this or this would be a perfectly valid placement. I think I'm just going to go ahead and place it like this because it fits a little bit nicer on the screen. But for this next card, I'm going to sacrifice strategy in order to do something a little bit different and show you that you can take from the bottom of the deck blindly. And after you've placed that first card from this point forward, the placement rules are all the same when it comes to placing more of these path cards. And those rules are that it always has to form a continuous path. So I could go ahead and place it like that. But you can also go ahead and cover up as much of the other card as you like, so long as the path isn't broken and as long as it doesn't split into multiple directions. You do also always need to have at least one waypoint visible on every card, so putting the card like this wouldn't be a valid placement, but putting it like this actually would. And that placement's not a terrible choice because it does get me a shark fin as well as a tentacle, and it does get me 3 other icons. So for my next turn, I could go ahead and put this one into play. But before I do that, let's not forget that there is the additional restriction here because of this active marvel and because I'm playing with this side of the ship up. And that restriction was that one of the cards that I placed did have to cover up at least one path segment of another card. I more than did that, so that was a perfectly valid placement, and for my next turn I am going to put this one into play. We have all the icons we need, and when you are placing one of these cards, you're not allowed to cover any of the path or the waypoints, and you do always have to place them horizontally. Because I took the active marvel, we're going to be replacing it with the next one at the top of the deck here. This one's also a level 2, so the same restriction's going to be applying for the next card. For the next card, I'm going to draw from the bottom because I don't really like the card on the top. And I don't really like this one all that much either, but what I really want to do is cover up the least amount of path as possible because each visible path segment is worth 1 victory point at the end of the game. Unfortunately, I do have to cover up at least one of them because of this restriction that we still have in play. This card doesn't look like it's going to help us too much with either of these marvels, so I'm going to go ahead and draw one from the bottom. Placing it like that meets the restriction and also meets the requirements for placing this next marvel, so I think we'll go ahead and do that. 2 whirlpools plus 3 different icons, so it'll fit just like so. And now this level 1 is going to become the next active marvel, which has the restriction that the marvel deck may not be discovered, so this one has to be the next card that we do discover. This one needs a trident, so we're not quite ready for that yet. I think this card at the top works fine. I think I'm going to flip this one around like this so we can go back in the other direction. You do have to place a second card here, and I don't think there's any risk from me drawing from the bottom, so let's go ahead and do that. And I think I am going to place it like that because it gets those 2 whirlpools together so we can cover those both up since they're worth -3 victory points. Which means that this level 3 marvel is now the active marvel, and I'm glad that we covered those whirlpools up because anytime that we have a level 3 as the active marvel, we are not able to cover up whirlpools when we add these map cards. This marvel is actually going to be pretty difficult to place because it does need to cover at least 3 icons of the same type, so let's see if we can accomplish that. This card's not super useful, so let's draw from the bottom. I don't really like this move, but I think I'm going to place it like that. It at least gets these 2 tentacles together, and then I can actually place this card like that. And that actually works out perfect because although I'm not allowed to cover whirlpools with exploration cards, I am still allowed to cover them with discovery cards. And this one has to cover 4 icons, and 3 of them do have to be of the same type, so we're going to perform a discovery action next. Place this here to cover those icons, which does include 3 tentacles. This last marvel card becomes our active one, which is also a level 3, which means that we still can't cover whirlpools with other exploration cards. And the restriction on this one is that it does have to cover exactly 3 different types of icons, so let's see if we can make that happen. I think we're pretty safe to draw from the bottom of the deck here, so let's do that. I'm actually going to place this one like that so that this whirlpool is far away from our next card since we're not allowed to cover whirlpools. And I don't know how this is going to work, but I don't think this card is that useful to me, so let's draw blindly from the bottom and see what we get. I just realized that this card I just drew, as well as the card that I could have just taken, are both equally awesome for me because they have 3 different icons right on them. I don't know why I didn't see that already. That means I can just place this anywhere where those are isolated, which allows me to do a discovery action as my next action, and that meets the requirement of that card. So I got all my discovery cards out, so that is really nice for a couple reasons. First, it means that I am going to be getting 5 victory points at the end of the game. Now that I've put all of them into play, I don't have any restrictions on me for the remaining 2 cards here. I already have 3 visible shark fins, which are worth 2 victory points at the end of the game, which is good. But if I get over 4 of them visible by the end of the game, then that is actually going to lose me the game. So I just want to be aware of that as I place these last couple cards. This top card doesn't have a shark fin on it, so I'm going to take the one at the bottom because I don't want to get stuck with a card with too many shark fins at the end of the game. And that was a good choice because if I had all of these shark fins visible at the end, I would have lost because that's a total of 5. I'm going to place it like that because it does cover one of the shark fins, but then it also gets those 2 whirlpools close to each other so that I can try to cover them with this last card, which I'm not really able to do totally, but I can cover one of them at least. I think we did pretty good here. Now we're just going to go ahead and add up the victory points. If we have less than 40, then we still lose the game because less than 40 victory points means that you're lost at sea. Each path segment is worth a victory point. Waypoints aren't worth anything, so I'll just go ahead and tally those up quick. So we have 33 points from the path segments alone, plus we get 5 victory points for having placed all of the marvels. So that's 38, plus we're going to get 2 victory points for each of the visible icons, and we haven't breached any of the thresholds for any of them, so we're good here. So that's an additional 12 points, which puts us at 50 victory points. But we are going to lose 3 for each of the whirlpools, so that puts us down 6, which is 44 points. The best score you can achieve is over 50 victory points, but 44 is not bad either because it is a successful voyage, which means we didn't die. So I think I did pretty good again, and I think I just do really well on camera because I'm extra slow and tedious as I'm filming all of this, especially with all the retakes that you don't actually see in the final footage. And I definitely didn't need to go through the full game to show you how this plays, but I did have a lot of fun with this one, and I swear Button Shy Games is slowly turning me into a solo gamer. I'm always really impressed with their games, and this one especially was very puzzly, so if you are into puzzly games, I think this is definitely one that you will want to check out. And you don't have to play this one solo. It is rated up to 4 players, and when you're playing with more people, you're just going to be alternating turns, choosing whether to take an explorer or a discovery action on your turn. But if you like what you saw here and you want to check it out or grab yourself a copy, I will have a link to the campaign in the description down below, and there is also a print and play preview copy if you do want to try it for yourself.